Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming to see our presentations today. We've all put a lot of work into them, and we're really excited to share them with you. So thank you all for spending an evening with us. My name is Jessica Choromanski. I'm an associate on the Strategic Analysis and Sourcing team at the Riverside Company. It's a middle market private equity firm downtown, and my group's main role is to be a think tank for our executive team. We do all the analytics and all the research and everything that goes out in marketing materials, investor pitches, investor newsletters. It's all coming from our group. Now, it puts me in an interesting position because I get to work with our executives fairly often. Through my interactions with them, as long with all the research that I put into this project, I've seen some themes come up with what happens for a successful executive. And the way I've summed these themes up are into my model of executive leadership, which has 5 main components. The first is vision, then's accountability, integrity, communication, and flexibility. These 5 traits are themes that I see across Riverside, across the research that I've done, and also across industries and time periods. I made my research to be pretty far-reaching in terms of industries and if it went back in time, so hopefully you'll see that there's a lot of depth to the research because I wanted to make sure, I think to be a good executive, a lot of these themes will really come true over time and even across industry. So moving to the first piece, so vision. I think this is the #1 thing that sets an executive apart from anyone else in the organization. I think you have that 30,000-foot view. You're really above. You're seeing where can this business go. You're innovating, and you're seeing what can it be. Now, vision's a little more complicated than that. As you know, it's not all straightforward. There's also strategy. It's great if you have an idea, but you need to have a strategy and know what results you have to have in order to drive to that vision. Now, a way to think about vision is seeing through the rain. This is any rainy, awful day in Cleveland. You can't really see clearly where you're going. You can't see the street. You can't see the street signs. It's up to you to really figure out where you need to go and how you need to get there. So really, vision is imperative for an executive to have in order to be effective. I read an interesting article on Campbell's CEO, Denise Morrison, and she really said the #1 thing that an executive needs to do is declare their goals so people know, and then achieve and drive towards those goals. You can set goals all you want, but if you're not driving to achieve them, you're not going to get anywhere. So really taking that to that next step and really achieving those goals, you can make this vision come alive. I also went back in time because Denise is a recent CEO, and I wanted to see how important has vision been, maybe when we haven't had the technologies that we've always had. I read an autobiography of Andrew Carnegie, and he really drove home the point that he grew his business in a time without technology by being innovative and finding these strategies and really driving his team to this success. I really think this is what sets an executive apart. You can see what nobody else can see, and you can get people to go there with you. Now that you have this high-level idea, you're driving towards your results, I think you really need accountability to really drive it home. It's great if you want to have your strategy and your results, but if you're not willing to man up and say that I did this or I didn't do this, if you're not willing to own the results that you set out for, people aren't going to give you credibility. They're going to just wait for you to pass the buck. They're not going to want to work for you. You're really not going to be able to get ahead. The strong leaders really take accountability for their actions and their results and learn from them to do things better the next time. I like to compare that to lightning striking. You could have an action that leads to lightning really taking down something and causing harm. If you're a strong leader, you're going to own that. You're going to learn something from it, and you're going to be able to move forward past that. I read an interesting article that was on how to grow and develop leaders. And it said, effective executives, they set goals, but it's the ones that own the results. They don't set them, they don't push them off on others. It's the ones who really own the results that are the ones that get ahead, because people are going to trust you. They're going to know if something goes wrong, that it's not going to be the end of the world. You're not going to push it off. You're going to sit, you're going to learn from it, you're going to own it, and you're going to move on and move on better from that. Now that you have your vision, you know where you're going, you know what you want to do, we really move into integrity. I think this is the number one thing that people need to have in general, not even just executives, so I think it's a key part of this model. Integrity is really backing your actions with morals. It's doing what you think is right. Throughout this course, we shadowed a lot of CEOs. We went out to Malley's CEO, to Hillcrest's CEO. We've also done the research on multiple CEOs. Everyone says the most important thing is that they want to be known as a good person. It's not about the buildings that you build. It's not about the results you've driven in terms of profit. If you can do the right thing and be known for it, that's what they all want to be taken away with. And that's what you need really with integrity. The way I'd apply this to your business is a bright sunny day. In an ideal world, you want your business to be a bright sunny day. You want transparency. You want everyone to know what's going on, because then you don't have any dark spots where fraud or anything else could be going on that you wouldn't believe. I think Riverside is a great place to see integrity at work. Since my first day there, my CEOs have really driven home the point that we're principled partners. Now, that means for the investors that we're investing their money, we're going to do it the right way. It means that we might not make the most money. There's a handful of industries that my company will not invest in. And that's okay because it's what they think is right and wrong. And it's okay because at the end of the day, they can sleep comfortably at night knowing that they didn't make a quick buck doing something they didn't believe in. It also is a message that we share with the companies we acquire. When we're going out to acquisition targets, it's one of the first things they'll say to you. We're going to do this with you the right way. We're not going to make a quick buck. We're really going to try to grow you and get you into a better home than where you are right now. Really working in an organization that believes in integrity, you can see how it's grown. Riverside's been in business for 25 years. In private equity, that is ancient. So it's great to see that such a basic building block can take you that far. Now, I was reading a really interesting book, and it was called The Effective Executive. And there's the typical things you would think you would find. But the book really highlighted integrity. And I really respect the way that they talked about integrity, because they said, integrity doesn't accomplish anything. And think about it, it's true. You can have all the integrity in the world and you won't get anywhere, necessarily. It all depends on your actions and what you really do. But it finishes out and says, the absence of it will fault everything. It's one of the truest quotes that I saw, and one of the most powerful that I came across. Think about everybody that we've heard about lately in the business that haven't been practicing integrity. Think of the Bernie Madoffs, think of the Tychos and the Enrons. They're more interested in the quick buck rather than sticking to what they know is right or wrong. So really, if you stick with integrity, you can be a very effective executive, and it really is a cornerstone to, I think, being any business person in general. Now moving on, you have all of these great ideas. You have your vision, you have the results you're driving to, you're really doing all of these great things. But the problem is you're thinking about them. You need to assemble a great team. You need to share your thoughts with the organization. You have to be able to communicate. You cannot be an effective executive if you can't communicate. And when I talk about communication, I'm really talking about two different aspects. Now, the first is you need to be able to build a culture of a two-way communication. If you're the type of executive that just demands orders down and doesn't learn from your team and doesn't build that trust, eventually you're going to fall. Or you're not going to go as far as you could have had you listened to everyone else's recommendations. The second is that you have to be clear. You can have the best ideas in the world, but if you cannot clearly communicate them, you're not going to get anywhere. Your team is going to be confused. Their team is going to be confused. Anyone external to your company is going to be confused. So communication is really imperative to get all of these other great things that we're doing out there. Example for this is this beautiful house in a tornado. You want communication because if there's people outside of the house and inside of the house, you better hope that they're both talking to help each other out, or you're going to get taken out. Additionally, you better hope that they're talking clearly, because if they think someone said a tornado is 2 states away, that's a very different story than it is immediately outside. So there's those 2 pieces of communication you really need to marry to be a very effective executive. There's an example in Riverside that our Chief Operating Officer, Pam Hendrickson, often quotes when she's talking about building a 2-way communication street. She impresses upon the executives of our portfolio companies, those companies that we own, that they need to really build this 2-way street. Because the people who are doing the jobs are the people who are living it every day and probably know how to do it best. You're sitting about a bit higher and trying to manage the whole organization, so how can you tell somebody how to do their job the most effectively? You really need to learn from each other and build that trust that they can come to you with ideas. So Pam impressed our executives at our companies to go out and build this culture. And the first project to build it is, how can we make our companies more green? It's something everybody is very into. It's good for the environment. It's good for PR. So let's try to green our companies. The CEO took this to heart, and he called a meeting with all the workers at his company. And interestingly, one of the employees had an idea. They said, what if we turned off the lights in the vending machine? That seems simple. The cafeteria is lit, the vending machine's lit, turn off the light, we'll have a quick win. Executive said, that's great, we'll implement it. It ended up saving the company twice as much money as they thought, because if the light's not on the machine, you need less energy to cool it. So there's very simple ideas that you can get from people that if you're not stuck in the clouds, if you're really building that trust and communication, you can get little wins like the vending machine, or maybe somebody has a great product idea that you take to the next level. It's imperative that you're able to listen and have this trust. Now the second facet I talked about is building a clear and concise message with your team and your entire organization. My co-CEOs, which are Stuart Cole and Bela Zigathy, really believe in communicating their message. They send out the monthly missives to the masses, which are more formally known as the MMMs, each month to every employee at Riverside. It is a 1-paragraph about whatever is on their mind. It instantly, in 1 paragraph, moves the entire organization in the way they want them to go. So it's interesting to see that one night Stuart was thinking about how should you compensate an executive at exit. So he put it in an email, and every deal team member now knows what they should have. It's the little things that you can do as an executive that really keeps everyone on the same page moving forward to hit all of those goals that you've come across. Now my final piece is extremely important, which I know you're thinking all of these pieces have been extremely important. But this one I think is one of the most interesting, because you can do a lot of these things really great as an executive. You could really plan and know what results you need and know exactly where you're going. But we're in a very global world that's changing overnight. So if you can't be flexible, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to succeed. It really is taking all of those skills and vision and results and taking it to the next level, because you can continue to adapt and grow with your organization. I imagine your plan when you're a $10 million company is going to be pretty different than a $50 million company. And it's your ability to recognize that, recognize changes in your market, recognize changes in your organization, and really propel it forward so that you keep growing and you don't stay stagnant. I like to compare this to a tsunami, which is a little dramatic, but I think an excellent example, because think of this beautiful city you have laid out. You have streets and neighborhoods and shops, and everything works perfectly together to be as it is. But overnight, one wave can come through and knock it all out. What are you going to do as a leader? The less effective ones are going to be the ones who just do what they're doing. Let's rebuild the city as is. The really effective executives are going to say, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? How can we be better than that? Travis Smith, who's the CEO at Joann Fabrics, I had an interview with him, and he really talked about the importance of being able to grow and change your business. He's a younger CEO. He's only in his 40s. And he said the reason that he's made it as far as he has is because he's been able to adapt and change to the new roles he's taken and the new ways he's moved the business. In addition, I read an article by Maggie Vilderot, who is the CEO of Frontier Communications, and she said the single most important thing a leader can do is base decisions on the most recent information. If you're not being flexible, if you're working on the past, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to move forward. I also read an amazing story about Michael Dell. He said back in 1997, when Dell was on top of the world, if he had to manage Apple, he would shut it down. Now, Apple was flexible. They said, how can we do this better? We're struggling right now. They're now one of the best companies. Michael Dell couldn't imagine managing a struggling company, and it's exactly what he's doing today. And he's looking to get bought out by some private equity groups because he doesn't know what to do with his business. We know he was successful, he had a great business, but he couldn't be flexible, so it's only sustainable for so long. So really coming back to this model, these pieces all work together, and hopefully you see there's a lot of depth underneath each. It's not as simple as a word as vision. It's really diving into the strategy and the results. I've been lucky enough at Riverside to have close interaction with a lot of executives, and I've seen a lot of these things in practice. My co-CEOs, I think, do all of these things excellent, and it's been great to be able to learn from them and see them in practice. These are the 5 things that I want to learn to do better, because I know doing better at these can make me an effective executive when I reach the corner office. Now, I know I talked about a lot of research, so here's a nice run-through of everything, which you don't have to run through, but I'll open it up for questions now, if there's any that you have. Or if I just wowed you and you don't have questions, that's okay too.
Was there anything that you learned that surprised you after talking to a number of CEOs, something that hadn't occurred to you until you did speak to them?
I think the one thing that stood out the most is every single CEO said they really want to remember for doing good things. Where you think they'd be so proud of the businesses that they grew, or buildings they put up, or even charities they contributed to. That feeds into it, but they really just want to be remembered that they did something extra special and really can be remembered as a good person. And I think it's important to remember that that's always should be the most important thing in your life.
Yeah, I like the focus on the integrity part, because I think that's extremely important. Because if you're not that way, people see it when you're trying to lead them and stuff like that. Except on accountability, I kind of thought maybe you'd get into a little bit more of, you're talking about accountability for yourself as a leader, or accountability for your people as far as
It's both.
measurement?
I think when you set accountability tone for yourself, it's going to trickle down through your organization. You really want your managers and everyone below you to all be owning what they're doing, because it just builds so much buy-in to the organization if you feel like you're responsible.
Yeah, because the accountability gets kind of broad, because you also talk about the financial accountability, which is always a piece of the pie that seems to be missing a lot of times when we're talking about leadership, you know, as far as the financial analysis and accountability.
Did you ever interview anybody that you didn't think had integrity, who was a CEO, and how did you discover that? And what would you do in that case?
I actually didn't for this, which I mean I'm very proud of. I'm hoping and hopeful that there's far less with no integrity than more. I think all the CEOs that I knew for this project, I had heard through charitable organizations and things that they had been involved in, so most of them would be acting with integrity, but I think it's one of those things you observe and you learn from. I can interview him, but I can't make him have integrity, but I can learn from the fact that maybe he has a shortfall like that.
Thanks very much for bringing up some points that I'm going to need to go back and refresh on for my business, because they're very important ones. And so based on that comment, your model is circular, and your pieces go around the circle. Is that an implication that no one piece is any more important or less than any other? Because in your delivery, I kind of got the impression at the very end that you thought flexibility was somewhat higher up on the hierarchy perhaps than something else. I'm not sure, but in your pictorial, it would seem like everybody's on an equal ground. What do you think?
I think you need them all. You could be the most flexible leader, but if you don't have the vision, you're not going anywhere. So it's really hard to pick apart pieces or say you need this to this to this. You need to kind of have them all going on at the same time and playing off each other to really get ahead and be successful.
And you made one comment that drew my attention, and if you could expand on that a little bit. You said that that you had read that someone made a comment that in order to be a successful executive, you have to work on the basis of what's going on now, not in the past. You can't be working on what's in the past. I'm not sure I quite get exactly what you mean, because in one sense, I believe it's very important to know historically where your company has been, or if you're not, if you don't have the history with the company from the very beginning, you need to learn that, and you need to incorporate that at every step in the process, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, you absolutely should have the history. But if you're making a decision, you can't just base it on how you made a decision before. You need to know how you made it before, but then also see what's going on today. Because like Michael Dell, you can get tunnel visioned and this has always worked, this has always worked. And then you look up and the world's completely changed. So the more successful one's going to be the one who keeps integrating the new information to what they know.
Do you have any examples in your visits to executives that tied in with one of your points there? Do you see people with a good vision, exceptional vision, something like that?
I actually think my CEOs have had a very interesting vision. They built the company together, and they're not afraid to try new things. And then they tie into accountability too, because if something's not working, you better believe we'll get an MMM about, we're not going to do this anymore, but here's what we learned. So it's interesting to see, they said, maybe we should try to, track the public markets. We have a lot of private information, let's try the public markets. And it was just internal, their own money, nothing official. They weren't afraid to say after a year, this didn't work. But they're always looking to see, what can we do new, what can we do better, how do we grow?
What do you see as the most difficult aspect of fulfilling this, implementing this? Where's the challenge?
I think it depends on your personality. So I would say I personally sometimes get lost in vision. Sometimes I get more into the details. And I think there's a lot of personalities get sucked into more the day-to-day, and you have to remember to pull yourself out. There's probably a lot of leaders that have trouble with flexibility. You're so used to the way you did it, you just want to keep doing it. So I'm sure that it depends pretty much on your personality, but I think there would be certain things that you would be better at or worse at, depending on what your personality is.
You didn't talk too much about the people that these CEOs or executives would choose and how they fit into this. And is there a reason that you didn't? And do you not feel that that's important? Or?
Oh, I think they're very important. And I think most of what you're doing here is setting the stage for the people below you. I think you're going to tend to work with people who have the traits that you're doing. So you want people who are accountable, you want people who work with integrity, you want people that are good communicators, you want people who are driving towards the results that you see. I think a lot of these traits really feed into the team that you're building below you, because you can't do it by yourself. But if you don't have these qualities in the people below you, you're not going to be able to fulfill your vision.
We'll do one more question and then cover it up. Any questions?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
up there. It
Do you
was-
have a charger for this? Do you have a charger? It's running out of battery.